3 months passed since Earth joined the Galactic Confederation. During this time, humans learned much about alien technology and culture, but they were still treated as the lowest members. The aliens continued to call them the cowards behind their backs. Ambassador Alan Wright tried to improve Earth's standing, but Supreme Counselor Zaxthar blocked him at every turn. Meanwhile, Commander Susan Collins spent her time learning about the Confederation's defense systems. She was not happy with what she found. "They have powerful weapons," she told Alan one night in their secure meeting room, "but they rarely practice using them. Their ships are fast, but their pilots don't train for real battles." Alan rubbed his tired eyes. "They've had peace for thousands of years. They've forgotten what it means to be ready for threats." "And that thing at the edge of their space is getting closer," said Susan, pointing to her tablet. On the screen was the dark spot they had seen in the assembly 3 months ago. It was now twice as big and moving faster. The next day, alarms rang throughout the space station. All members of the Confederation were called to an emergency meeting. Alan and Susan took their seats in the human section, which was still far from the main floor. Zaxthar stood in the center, his purple skin looking pale. "Council members, we have troubling news," he said. "The anomaly we have been watching has changed course. It is now heading directly toward Confederation space. More concerning, it has consumed a star system at the outer edge of our territory." Gasps filled the room. Susan sat up straight, her face serious. "The science team we sent last week has not reported back," continued Zaxthar. "We have lost all contact with them. We are now treating this as a potential threat to the Confederation." Susan turned to Alan. "We need to speak up now." Alan nodded and stood. "Supreme Counselor, may Earth's delegation address the Council?" Zaxthar looked annoyed but nodded. "Proceed, Ambassador Wright." Alan walked down to the main floor, with Susan following him. They stood before the Council, looking up at thousands of alien faces. "Members of the Confederation," began Alan, "humanity has faced many threats in its history. We have learned that early action is better than late regret. This entity, which I suggest we call the Void, shows signs of intelligent behavior. It changed course, it consumed a star system. It may have captured or destroyed your science team." Susan stepped forward and tapped on a control panel. A large image appeared above them, showing plans and diagrams. "These are Earth's suggested defensive measures," she said firmly. "First, evacuate all systems in the path of the Void. Second, create 3 defensive lines with your most powerful ships. Third, begin researching weapons that might affect this entity based on the data we already have." Zaxthar laughed, but it sounded forced. "Commander Collins, your species' fear is showing again. We do not even know if this entity is hostile." "It ate a star system," said Susan flatly. "I call that hostile." An alien with long tentacles and glowing spots stood up. "The humans may have a point. The Navarians believe in preparation as well. We support their plan." Zaxthar's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. "We will take a vote. All in favor of the human plan, which would cost trillions of credits and cause panic throughout the Confederation?" Only 2 lights lit up on the voting board: Earth and the Navarians. All in favor of a more measured approach, sending a larger research team and placing a single defensive line near the affected area. The rest of the council members voted for this option. Zaxthar smiled at Alan and Susan. "The council has decided. Thank you for your input, humans, but we will handle this our way. You may return to your seats." As they walked back, Susan whispered to Alan, "This is a mistake. That thing is dangerous. I can feel it." Alan nodded. "Then we need to prepare Earth, just in case the Confederation fails." For the next 2 weeks, Susan and Alan sent secret messages back to Earth, warning about the Void and suggesting defenses. They also began to collect as much data as they could from the Confederation's computers. One day, while Susan was working in her room, a young officer named Greg Baker knocked on her door. "Commander," he said quietly, "I've been monitoring Confederation communications like you asked. The second research team, they're gone too. All 15 ships just gone. The Confederation is trying to keep it quiet, but I sliced into their secure channel." Susan's face hardened. Thank you, Greg. Tell no one else about this. I need to talk to the ambassador. That night, Susan and Alan called an emergency meeting with all 20 members of the Earth delegation. The Confederation is not taking this threat seriously enough, said Alan. We believe the void is a major danger not just to them but potentially to Earth as well. We're going to defy Confederation orders, said Susan bluntly. We're going to prepare defenses, with or without their approval. If anyone objects, you can leave this room now. No one moved. Good, said Susan with a nod. Let's get to work. The humans began working in secret. They modified their own ship, Earth's Hope, adding new sensors and weapons systems. They also began building small probe drones to gather more information about the void. 2 days later, alarms rang through the station again. This time, the emergency was worse. 3 outer systems of the Confederation had gone silent. Millions of aliens were missing. In the Grand Assembly, Zaxthar looked truly afraid for the first time. The entity has accelerated, he said, his voice shaking. It has consumed 3 more systems. We have lost contact with over 30 million citizens. The room erupted in shouts and cries. Some aliens demanded immediate action. Others called for evacuation of all outer systems. Zaxthar raised his hands for silence. The Council's Leadership Committee has met and developed a response plan. We will send half of our defense fleet to contain the entity while we evacuate the next systems in its path. Susan stood up without asking permission. That won't be enough. This entity is growing stronger with each system it consumes. You need to commit all your forces now. Commander Collins, snapped Zaxthar, you are out of order. The humans do not have voting rights in this council. We don't need rights to see you're making a fatal mistake, shouted Susan. That thing is not just some space monster. It's intelligent. It's learning and it's getting faster. Alan joined her. Supreme Counselor, please, at least look at our new data. We've been studying the void with our own equipment. You what? Zaxthar's voice dropped to a dangerous tone. You used unauthorized technology on this station? This is a serious violation of your membership terms. We did what was necessary, said Alan firmly. Because you wouldn't listen to us. Zaxthar's face darkened with anger. Guards, escort the human delegation back to their quarters. They are confined there until further notice, and disable their ship's systems immediately. As the guards approached, Susan whispered to Alan, We have to get back to Earth. We have to warn them. I know, said Alan quietly. But first we need to show them our data. Once they see it, they'll understand. The guards led the humans away from the assembly room. Behind them, the aliens continued to argue about how to face the growing threat of the void. Back in their quarters, the humans gathered around Susan. They've locked down our ship and blocked our communications, she said. But they don't know about the backup system Greg installed. We can still send one last message to Earth. She turned to a small device hidden in the wall. This is Commander Susan Collins. Emergency code Red 7 Alpha. The threat is confirmed and growing. Confederation response is inadequate. Requesting immediate implementation of Project Bulwark. Repeat. Implement Project Bulwark now. The message sent with a small beep. Susan looked at the humans around her. Now we wait, she said grimly, and hope the Confederation realizes we were right before it's too late. That night, the space station shook with a distant explosion. The void had reached the Confederation's first defensive line, and the battle had begun. The next 2 months were filled with hard work and worry. Humans and aliens worked together to build the Darkside ship. It was not easy. The 2 groups had different ways of doing things, and they often argued. No, the energy shields must form. A double layer, Susan would shout at the alien engineers. A single layer won't hide us from the void. But double layers require too much power, the aliens would argue back. The ship will not be able to move fast enough. In the end, they found a middle way. The shields would have 1.5 layers, and the ship would carry extra power cells. While the ship was being built, the void continued to grow and spread. It had now taken 12 Confederation systems and was moving toward the core worlds. The aliens were scared. Alan spent most of his time in meetings with Zaxthar and other alien leaders. At first, they still looked down on humans, but as more of their worlds fell to the void, they started to listen more. "We need to evacuate these 3 systems next," Alan would say, pointing to star maps. "The void will reach them within 10 days. "But those systems have important resources," an alien leader would complain. "We cannot just abandon them." "People are more important than resources," Alan would answer firmly. "We can rebuild mines and factories. We cannot bring back the dead." Slowly, the aliens began to change. They started to plan ahead more. They built underground shelters on their planets. They stored extra food and medicine. They became more like humans in their thinking. Meanwhile, on a small research station orbiting Earth's moon, Dr. Olivia Patterson made a big discovery. She had been studying small pieces of energy that the void left behind after battles. "It's not what we thought," she told Susan one day, her eyes wide with excitement. "The void isn't destroying matter and energy. It's converting them to something else, a kind of dark energy that exists partly in another dimension." Susan frowned. "What does that mean for us?" "It means our weapons aren't working because they're only hitting the part of the void that's in our dimension," explained Olivia. "It's like trying to kill a fish by throwing stones at its shadow on the bottom of the pond." "So how do we hit the real thing, not just its shadow?" asked Susan. Olivia smiled. "I've been working on that. I call it the anchor beam. It can force the void to fully enter our dimension for a short time. Then our normal weapons might hurt it." This news changed everything. The dark side ship was quickly modified to carry Olivia's anchor beam. The final ship was painted black to absorb light and had a strange, curved shape unlike any ship ever built before. On the day the ship was finished, Susan stood before a crowd of humans and aliens in the launch bay. Behind her was the dark side, ready for its dangerous mission. "We don't know if this will work," she said honestly, "but we have to try. The void has already taken too many lives. It's time we fight back." Susan would lead the mission herself, along with a crew of 15 humans and 5 aliens. They would take the dark side close to the void, use the anchor beam, and gather as much data as possible before escaping. As Susan prepared to board the ship, Alan approached her. "Be careful out there, Commander. Earth needs you to come back." Susan nodded. "We'll do our best. Keep the defense fleets ready. If this works, we'll need to hit the void with everything we've got." The dark side left Earth the next day. It would take 1 week to reach the void, which was now attacking the Navarian home system. The Navarians were fighting bravely, but they were losing ground every day. During the journey, Susan spent hours studying the void's patterns. It seemed to be getting smarter, picking targets more carefully than before. "It's learning," she told her crew. "Every battle teaches it something new. We need to be unpredictable." When they finally reached the edge of the Navarian system, they saw the void with their own eyes for the first time. It was like a huge black cloud, but with streaks of purple and blue energy moving through it. Around its edges, pieces of broken ships and even small asteroids floated, slowly being pulled in. "It's beautiful in a terrifying way," whispered one of the crew members. "Activate stealth systems," ordered Susan. "Move us in slowly." The dark side crept forward, its special shields hiding it from the void's senses. They got closer than any ship had ever gotten before. Just 10,000 miles from the void's edge, they stopped. "Prepare the anchor beam," said Susan. "All other weapons ready. Remember, we get one shot at this. Once we fire, the void will know we're here." The crew worked quickly, charging the anchor beam to full power. Their plan was simple. Fire the beam, force part of the void into full reality, hit it with conventional weapons, then run away at top speed. "Anchor beam ready," reported Olivia, who had insisted on joining the mission. "Fire," ordered Susan. Bright blue beam shot out from the dark side and hit the void. At first, nothing seemed to happen, then slowly, in the 3 months after the Battle of Navaria, the galaxy changed. The Confederation, once so confident in its peaceful ways, now prepared for war. On every planet, people built shelters. Ships trained in battle formations. Food and medicine were stored in safe places. The aliens had learned the human way of thinking. Susan Collins, now Admiral Collins, led the combined fleet. She had ships from 17 different species under her command. Even Zaxthar, who once mocked humans, now served as her advisor. "The void is healing faster than we expected," Susan told the War Council one day. She pointed to the large screen, showing the dark entity. "It's already regained most of the mass it lost in our battle, and it's changing shape," added Olivia Patterson. She had become the head scientist for the Void research team. "It's becoming more streamlined, less spread out. I think it's getting ready to move fast." Alan Wright, still serving as Earth's ambassador but now with much more respect, looked at the data. "Where do you think it will strike next?" Susan studied the star maps. "It's been avoiding populated systems since we heard it. I think it's been consuming uninhabited planets and stars to regain strength. But soon it will need more information. It will go after a technology center." "The Zenith Collective," said Zaxthar immediately. "They have the most advanced technology in the Confederation after the Navarians, and their home system is isolated with fewer defenses than other core worlds." Susan nodded. "That would be my guess too. We need to reinforce their system immediately." Orders went out, and ships moved to protect the Zenith Collective's home system. But the Void didn't attack there. Instead, it suddenly appeared near Earth's colonies in the Tau Ceti system. "It tricked us," said Susan when she heard the news. "It's learning strategy now, not just reacting." The colony on Tau Ceti was better defended than most. It had a dozen ships with anchor beams and strong planetary shields. But the Void had changed its tactics too. Instead of attacking directly, it sent out hundreds of smaller pieces of itself, like scouts or fighters. The battle lasted 2 days. In the end, the colony held, but just barely. 6 ships were lost, and part of the colony's main city was damaged when the Void broke through the shields briefly. "It's testing our defenses," said Susan as she reviewed the battle reports, looking for weaknesses, and it nearly found one. "If the colony hadn't had those backup generators for the shields—" "Just like you insisted," said Alan with a small smile. "Always have a backup for the backup." Susan nodded but didn't smile back. "We got lucky this time. But the Void is learning faster than we are. We need to change our approach." For the next week, Susan met with scientists and military leaders from across the Confederation. They needed a new plan, something the Void wouldn't expect. Olivia brought the answer. "I've been studying the energy patterns at the Void's core," she explained to the council. "There's a central point where all the dark energy flows together, like a heart or a brain. If we could hit that spot with enough force, we might be able to disrupt the entire entity. But we'd need to get very close to use the anchor beams effectively on something that small," said one of the alien admirals. "How would we get past its defenses?" Susan thought for a moment. "We don't try to fight our way through. We use stealth. A small team, 1 ship, modified to be completely invisible to the Void's senses." "A suicide mission," said Zaxthar quietly. "Not necessarily," said Susan. "With the right ship and the right team, they could get in, hit the core, and escape during the confusion." The council debated for hours, but in the end, they agreed to Susan's plan. A special ship would be built, even more advanced than the Dark Side. It would carry the most powerful anchor beam ever made, designed to target the Void's core specifically. While the ship was being built, the Void attacked 2 more systems. Each time the defenders held, but with heavy losses. The Void was getting stronger and smarter with each battle. Finally, the new ship was ready. It was named Hope's Light, and it was a marvel of combined human and alien technology. It could become almost completely invisible to all forms of detection. Its armor was made of special materials that the Void's tentacles couldn't easily grip. And at its heart was a weapon like no other, an anchor beam that could focus all its power on a target the size of a small house. Susan stood in the launch bay, looking at the ship. She had made her decision days ago, but only now told the council. "I will lead this mission," she said firmly when they objected. "I know the Void better than anyone. I've fought it more times than anyone. It has to be me." In the end, they couldn't change her mind. Susan would lead a crew of 10, 5 humans and 5 aliens, each chosen for their special skills. The aliens included Kurtel, who had become a good friend to the humans, and a Zenith engineer who knew more about energy weapons than anyone in the galaxy. The night before the mission, Alan came to Susan's quarters. They had worked together for over a year now, from those first tense days in the Confederation to now. "You don't have to do this," he said quietly. "Send someone else." Susan shook her head. "You know I do. The void has been one step ahead of us too many times. I need to see its core with my own eyes. I need to understand it better." Alan nodded slowly. "Just come back. The fleet needs you. Earth needs you." "I'll do my best," said Susan with a small smile. "And we have a good ship, a good plan, and a good crew. The odds are, well, they're not terrible." The next morning, Hope's Light left the fleet and headed toward the Void's last known position. Intelligence reports showed it was gathering in a remote system, perhaps preparing for another major attack. The journey took 3 days. The crew spent the time checking and rechecking their systems. The plan was simple but dangerous. They would approach using full stealth, get as close to the Void's core as possible, fire the special anchor beam to expose and freeze the core, then hit it with everything they had. When they finally found the Void, it was even larger than before. It now spanned half a solar system, with tendrils reaching out in all directions like a giant octopus. "Stealth systems at maximum," ordered Susan as they approached. "Minimal power to engines. Let's drift in as much as possible." Slowly, carefully, Hope's Light moved toward the Void. Their sensors, specially designed to see through the Void's darkness, showed them the way toward its center. "There," said Olivia, pointing to a spot on the screen. "That bright energy point, that's the core. It's about 2,000 miles inside the main mass." Susan nodded. "We need to get within 500 miles for the anchor beam to be effective. Pilot, take us in. Everyone else, prepare for action. Once we fire, we'll have maybe 2 minutes before the Void reacts." The ship slipped deeper into the Void's territory. All around them, dark matter swirled and shifted. Occasionally they saw glimpses of ships, planets, even stars that the Void had consumed. Their matter twisted and changed, but still recognizable. 500 miles to the core," reported the pilot, his voice tense. "We're at optimal firing range." Susan took a deep breath. "Charge the anchor beam. All other weapons standing by." The ship hummed as power flowed to the anchor beam. It was using almost all their energy, leaving just enough for a fast escape afterward. "Anchor beam charged and ready," said the weapons officer. "Target the core," ordered Susan. "And fire!" A beam of bright blue energy shot out from Hope's Light, cutting through the Void's darkness like a knife. When it hit the core, there was a flash of brilliant purple light. The core, normally fluid and shifting, suddenly became solid and visible. "It worked," shouted Olivia. "The core is anchored in our dimension." "All weapons, fire at the core," ordered Susan. Every gun on Hope's Light fired at once, hitting the exposed core with incredible force. The Void seemed to shudder around them. The core pulsed with strange colors, and waves of energy spread outward. "It's working," said Kurtel. "The core is destabilizing." But then something unexpected happened. The Void's darkness began to flow rapidly toward the core like it was trying to protect it. "We need to get out of here now," shouted Susan. "Full power to engines." The pilot turned the ship and pushed the engines to maximum. Hope's Light shot, away from the core, trying to escape the rushing darkness. "The Void is collapsing in on itself," reported Olivia, watching the sensors. "It's like a star-going supernova." They were almost clear of the Void's main mass when a tendril of darkness caught the back of the ship. The whole vessel shook violently. "We're losing engine power," shouted the engineer. "That thing is draining our energy." Susan made a quick decision. "Overload the anchor beam. Pour all remaining power into it and fire it backward." The weapons officer worked quickly. Anchor beam reconfigured and overloading, firing now. The beam shot out behind them, hitting the tendril that had caught them. The dark matter froze and then shattered. Hope's Light broke free and raced away from the Void at full speed. Behind them, the unbelievable happened. The Void's core, damaged by their attack and then further destabilized by the collapse of its outer layers, exploded in a burst of energy that lit up the entire system. The darkness that had been the void broke apart into countless small pieces, drifting harmlessly in space. "We did it," whispered Olivia, staring at the sensor readings. "The core is destroyed. The void is dead." The big ship named Earth's Hope moved slowly toward the giant space station. Inside the ship, Ambassador Alan Wright fixed his tie and took a deep breath. Today was a big day for all humans. After years of sending signals to space, aliens had finally answered. Now humans were about to meet the Galactic Confederation for the first time. "Are you ready, Ambassador?" asked Commander Susan Collins. She stood tall in her blue uniform with golden stars on the shoulders. "As ready as I'll ever be," said Alan with a small smile. "Let's hope they like us." Susan nodded but said nothing. She had spent 20 years in Earth's defense fleet, and she knew better than to assume all would go well. That's why she had a small gun hidden under her uniform just in case. The ship docked at the station with a soft bump. The doors opened with a hiss of air. Alan, Susan, and 10 other humans walked out to meet their alien hosts. The aliens waiting for them looked nothing like humans had imagined. Some had 6 arms, others had skin that changed colors, and one even floated above the ground. But they all wore the same silver and blue robes with strange symbols. "Welcome, humans of Earth," said a tall, thin alien with purple skin and 4 eyes. "I am Zaxathar, Supreme Counselor of the Viridians and leader of this welcome party. You are now in the presence of the oldest and most advanced group of civilizations in this part of the galaxy. We have kept peace for over 3,000 years. Alan stepped forward with a friendly smile. "Thank you for your welcome, Supreme Counselor. Earth is honored to meet the Confederation and hopes to learn from your wisdom." Zaxthar nodded, but his upper eyes narrowed. "Come. The Grand Assembly is waiting. All 17 species of the Confederation wish to see the newcomers." The humans followed Zaxthar through long hallways made of a strange blue metal. The walls showed moving pictures of strange planets and alien cities. After walking for 10 minutes, they reached 2 massive doors that opened by themselves. Inside was a huge round room with rings of seats going up like a bowl. Each ring held aliens of different kinds. At the very top sat Zaxthar's people, the Viridians. They looked down at everyone else. "The humans have arrived," announced Zaxthar, his voice now louder. "Let us begin the evaluation." "Evaluation?" whispered Alan to Susan. "I thought this was just a welcome meeting." Susan's face grew. "I don't like surprises." For the next 6 hours, the aliens asked the humans many questions. They wanted to know about Earth's wars, its leaders, its weapons, and its plans for the future. But most of all, they asked about human fears. "Is it true that humans build underground shelters in case of attacks?" asked a floating alien with tentacles. "Some do, yes," said Alan. "We like to be prepared." "And your governments keep large supplies of food and medicine for emergencies?" asked another alien with scales and a long neck. "Of course," said Susan. "Any responsible government would." The aliens whispered to each other. Their faces showed something between surprise and amusement. Finally, Zaxthar stood up again. "We have reached a decision. The humans will be admitted to the Confederation as a Tier 3 species." "What does that mean?" asked Alan, trying to keep his voice friendly. "It means," said Zaxathar with a small smile that showed his pointed teeth, "that you are at the bottom of our ranking. You will have limited access to our technology and no voting rights for at least 50 years. This is because we have determined that humans are, how should I say it, overly cautious." Susan stepped forward. "Cautious? Is preparation a bad thing in the Confederation?" A ripple of laughter moved through the room. Zaxthar's smile grew wider. "The truly advanced species have evolved beyond the need for constant preparation for disaster. We trust in our ability to solve problems as they arise. Your species builds bunkers beneath your homes. You store extra food. You imagine threats in every shadow. In the Confederation, we call this cowardice." Alan felt his face grow hot with anger, but he kept his voice calm. "Supreme Counselor, with all due respect, being prepared has helped humanity survive many challenges. Yes, yes, said Zaxathar, waving one of his long-fingered hands. We have studied your history, always preparing for the worst, always building walls and weapons. The Confederation values wisdom and calm over fearful preparation. Perhaps in time your species will learn to be less jumpy. More laughter filled the room. Susan's hand moved closer to where her hidden gun was, but Alan gave her a warning. Look, we accept the Confederation's decision, said Alan, though his voice was tight, and we hope to prove our worth over time. Good, good, said Zaxathar. Now, as a show of our generosity, we will allow your delegation to observe our next major meeting. We have detected something interesting at the edge of our space, and the Council will discuss it tomorrow. As the humans were led to their rooms, for the night Susan walked close to Alan. They think we're cowards because we prepare for problems, she whispered. These aliens have been safe for too long. They've forgotten what it means to fight for survival. Alan nodded. Let's see what this something interesting is tomorrow. I have a feeling they might learn to value our careful ways sooner than they think. That night, while the other humans slept, Susan used a small device to scan their rooms for listening devices. She found 3 and turned them off. Then she sent a secret message back to Earth. Aliens friendly but arrogant. They mock our caution. Advise continued preparation at home. The next morning, the human delegation took their seats in a small section of the Grand Assembly Room. They were far from the main floor, but they could still see the large screen that appeared in the center of the room. On the screen was a dark spot against the stars. It seemed to be moving slowly, and it was bigger than any spaceship. This anomaly was detected 3 days ago, said a scientist alien with blue skin and a large head. It appears to be moving toward Confederation space. We are not sure what it is yet. Perhaps a natural space phenomenon, said one alien. Or a new form of space life, suggested another. Susan leaned forward in her seat, studying the dark spot carefully. Something about it made her skin crawl with fear. We should send a small science team to study it, said Zaxathar. No need for concern at this point. Susan turned to Alan. That thing is absorbing light around it. It's not natural. We should speak up. Alan nodded and stood up. Supreme Counselor, may Earth's delegation offer an opinion? Zaxathar looked surprised, but nodded. The Council recognizes the human observer. Thank you, said Alan. On Earth, we have a saying, better safe than sorry. That anomaly shows signs that worry us. Perhaps while the science team investigates, the Confederation should also prepare some defenses, just in case. The room fell silent for a moment. Then Zaxathar laughed loudly. You see, Council members? Exactly as I said. Always looking for threats. Always wanting to prepare for the worst. This is why humans are Tier 3. Thank you, Ambassador Wright, for proving my point so perfectly. As the aliens laughed again, Susan and Alan shared a look. They both knew that the Confederation was making a big mistake. But for now, all they could do was watch and wait. The human delegation watched from their locked quarters as panic spread through the space station. On large screens throughout the hallways, they could see the battle against the void. It was not going well. The Confederation ships are too spread out, said Susan as she studied the battle. They're attacking one by one instead of together. The void is picking them off easily. Alan stood beside her, his face grim. They don't know how to fight as a team. They've had peace for too long. Greg, Baker worked on a small device in the corner of the room. I've almost got through their security system, Commander. We'll have control of our ship soon. Suddenly, all screens on the station went black. Then Zaxathar's face appeared, looking tired and afraid. Citizens of the Confederation, he said, his voice shaking slightly. I must report that our first defensive line has fallen. The entity known as the Void has destroyed or absorbed all 50 ships we sent against it. We are now implementing Emergency Plan Delta. All citizens in the following systems must evacuate immediately. As he listed many star systems, Susan turned to Alan. They're retreating. The first encounter, and they're already giving up. We need to get out of here, said Alan. Earth needs to know exactly what we're facing. Greg looked up from his device, with a smile. I've got it. We have control of Earth's Hope again. But the docking clamps are still locked. Susan thought for a moment. We'll need a distraction to get to the ship and something to blow those clamps. Just then, there was a knock at their door. When Alan opened it, he was surprised to see a Navarian standing there. The alien had blue scales and 6 eyes arranged in a circle on its head. Ambassador Wright, said the Navarian quietly. I am Kertal, representative of the Navarian Union. May I enter? Alan stepped aside, and the alien slipped into the room. My people agree with yours, said Kertal. The Confederation is not handling this threat correctly. We have been preparing, in secret just like you have. Susan stepped forward. What do you want from us? To help you escape, said Kertal, and to form an alliance, humans and Navarians working together to fight the void. Alan and Susan shared a look. Then Alan nodded. We accept, he said. But how will you help us escape? Kertal held up a small metal ball. This will disable the docking clamps, and as for a distraction, the alien smiled, showing sharp teeth. There will be an accidental fire in the main storage area in exactly 15 minutes. Susan nodded with approval. We'll be ready. After Kertal left, the humans quickly gathered their things and prepared to leave. Exactly 15 minutes later, alarms blared again, but this time they were warning of a fire, not the void. As security, personnel ran toward the storage area. The humans made their way to their ship. They met no resistance until they reached the docking bay. Hold it right there, shouted a guard, pointing a strange weapon at them. The humans are not permitted to leave. Before anyone could move, a blue-scaled arm reached out from behind a column and grabbed the guard. Kertal knocked the guard unconscious with a quick blow. Hurry, said the Navarian. More will come soon. The humans ran to Earth's Hope, while Kertal placed the metal ball on the docking clamps. The ball glowed bright blue, and then the clamps released with a loud clang. Come with us, called Alan to Kertal. The Navarian shook its head. I must stay and help my people prepare. We will meet again, humans. Good luck. The humans boarded their ship and started the engines. Susan took the pilot's seat and guided the ship away from the station. They're trying to lock us down with a tractor beam, said Greg from his station. Engines at full power. Earth's Hope shuddered but broke free of the station's hold. Just as they were about to jump to faster-than-light speed, a message came through. Humans, this is Supreme Counselor Zach Zathar. Return to the station immediately. Your actions are in violation of Confederation law. Alan pressed the communication button. This is Ambassador Wright. We are returning to Earth to prepare our defenses. The Confederation has failed its first test against the Void. Humanity will not make the same mistake. He cut the connection before Zach Zathar could respond, and the ship jumped away into faster-than-light travel. During the week-long journey back to Earth, the humans studied all the data they had gathered about the Void. It's not just eating planets and stars, said Lisa Young, their top scientist. It's absorbing information too. Every ship it captures, every computer system it touches, it learns from them. So it's getting smarter as it goes, said Alan. And bigger, added Susan. It grows with everything it consumes. When Earth's Hope finally reached Earth, they were met by a fleet of defense ships. Project Bulwark had already begun. Earth had been preparing for war. In the United Earth Defense Headquarters beneath New York City, Alan and Susan presented their findings to the world's leaders. The Void is coming, said Alan to the serious faces around the table. The Confederation couldn't stop it. Now it's up to us. How long do we have? Asked President Elaine Foster. Susan pulled up a map of the galaxy. Based on its current speed, 2 months at most before it reaches our outer colonies. Maybe 6 months until it reaches Earth itself. That's not much time, said General Bill Monroe, his face grim. It's all we have, said Alan. The good news is we've been preparing since our first message 3 months ago. We're already ahead of where the Confederation was. For the next month, Earth worked day and night to prepare. New weapons were built, ships were upgraded, defense stations were placed around all human colonies. Every scientist on the planet worked on understanding the void and finding its weakness. Then, just as they had predicted, the void reached the first human colony at Proxima Centauri. But unlike the Confederation's colony, this one was ready, as all. The void approached, automated defense platforms activated around the planet. They fired special weapons designed to affect the strange energy the void used. In the command center on Earth, Susan and Alan watched the battle through long-range sensors. "The defense platforms are holding," said Susan with excitement. "The void is slowing down." For 3 days, the automated defenses fought the void. They couldn't stop it completely, but they slowed it down and forced it to change course away from the planet. The colony was saved, though the defense platforms were destroyed. It was humanity's first small victory. News of this spread quickly through the galaxy. The Confederation, which was still retreating from the void's advance, could hardly believe it. 2 days later, a Confederation ship arrived at Earth. Zaxthar himself had come, along with representatives from other alien species. In the Grand Meeting Hall of the United Earth Defense, Zaxthar stood before the human leaders. His once proud posture was now slightly bent, as if carrying a heavy weight. "The Confederation acknowledges the humans' successful defense of their colony," he said formally. "We wish to learn how you achieved this." Susan stepped forward. "We achieved it by being prepared, by being willing to look fear in the face and plan for the worst. You called us cowards for building bunkers. Those bunkers just saved 1 million lives." Zaxthar's upper eyes blinked slowly. "Perhaps we were hasty in our judgment of your species." "Perhaps," said Alan coldly. "But now is not the time for blame. The void is still out there, still growing, still learning. We need to work together to stop it." "That is why we are here," said Zaxthar. "The Confederation proposes an alliance with Earth. Your defensive tactics have proven effective. We offer our advanced technology in exchange for your strategic guidance." President Foster looked at Alan and Susan before answering. "Earth accepts this alliance, but on equal terms. No more Tier 3 status. We want full membership and voting rights in the Confederation." Zaxthar hesitated, then nodded. "Agreed. The situation has changed. Old hierarchies mean little now." As the meeting continued, Susan slipped out to check on the latest data from their scout ships. The news wasn't good. The void had changed again. It was now moving faster than before, and it had split into 2 parts. When she returned to the meeting, she interrupted without apology. "We have a problem. The void is adapting to our defenses. It's changing its tactics. We need something more than just defensive platforms." "What do you suggest, Commander Collins?" asked President Foster. Susan looked around the room at humans and aliens alike. "We need to attack, not just defend. We need to find the void's core, the center of its consciousness, and hit it with everything we've got." "A direct assault?" said Zaxthar, his voice rising in alarm. "That is madness. Nothing can get close to the void without being consumed." "Nothing has tried the right way," said Susan firmly. "We've been studying this thing for months now. We have a theory about its weaknesses, but we need to test it." "How?" asked one of the other aliens, a green-skinned being with tentacles for arms. Susan pulled up a hologram showing a strange ship design. "With this, we call it Project Darkside, a ship specifically designed to get close to the void, protected by a special energy field that might hide it from the void's senses." Alan stepped to Susan's side. "We were already building it before you arrived. With the Confederation's help, we can finish it faster. This might be our only chance to learn enough about the void to truly fight it." The room fell silent as everyone stared at the ship design. It was unlike anything the Confederation had ever built.